All right, guys, welcome back to the channel and thank you for tuning in. So today we are working on Bear's bicycle. So don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and most important, when we're done watching the video, write me a comment and say, hey, you are such an idiot because you should do it this way, or I do it this way, you do it wrong. I don't care what the comment is, just make a comment. I like to talk to everybody. But this is what we're working with today. Bear's bike. We're putting his motor that is rebuilt for the 4th time on the bike, but this time you already saw in the video, iron sleeve big bore, so we should be Gucci. So let's get rocking and rolling with putting it on this bike. I gotta just wipe it down. Look how dirty it is. I gotta give it to him. He greases the chain. You know, I told him make sure you grease the chain, but he greases like every day. It's way too greasy. He over greases it, to be honest. Not that you can over grease it, but you don't need that much grease. It makes it real dirty. You know, is what it is. Oh, I got to flip these wheels around. I want to put the front wheel on the rear and the rear on the front because he's making this tire go bald. This way he has good tread on the rear again. All right, we got a lot to do and a little bit of time to do it. I think there's a song about that. I don't know. Hope you guys are liking the audio. I got myself a new lapel mic and it's wireless because I'm a baller. Not really. I got a really smoking deal on it and I really wanted a wireless. Plus I needed a new microphone to go with my new camera. So, well, new to me camera. You know I don't spend any real monies. Okay guys, real quick, I'm just turning you back on so I can give you a quick talk to. I'm still steadily working on this. I just cleaned the actual bike itself up real pretty, but the reason I'm talking to you is it's very overcast, but more than that anyway, it's already 4:46, which means it's going to be dark in about 15 minutes. So I'm going as fast as I can to get this done, but you probably won't be able to see much when I finally do get the motor on. So I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm going to switch out the tires, flip the bike back over, get everything ready to go, get the motor on, and I will turn you on for the inaugural startup. Nope. But there's a very good chance you won't be able to hear me anyway because it's going to be dark out. But all in all, the bike cleaned up really nice, which I expected it to because, you know, pretty clean bike, just super duper greasy because he greases way too much. But I'm very excited. This is the first time. Now, this is not the first time I have used one of these cylinders. I've used one of these cylinders as a replacement for my stock 49mm bore iron sleeve motor, the black one that was on Tweaker. I had that motor that came with that size cylinder. I've never taken an 80cc bottom end and put a big bore kit on it. Now it should be just like the black motor for the most part. There was a little bit of differences and all that, but this is the first time I ever did this and switched an 80 to 100, you know, as they say on the measurements. But I'm excited to see how it goes. Either way, let me get this done and you'll see me in the dark. All right, guys, we are back inside. Why are we back inside? Well, let me tell you why we're back inside. So you probably saw in the last part of the video that we had the motor on the bike. We fired it up and we took it for a test spin. Nope. I'm pretty sure you got that. It was getting dark when it was happening, but that's where we were. I didn't turn the camera back on to show you what happened shortly after that. So what happened is I brought the bike back to where I work on it, tried to tighten up the clutch because it felt like it was slipping real bad. Like it barely was spinning it when I was trying to start it. So I was like, all right, cool bet. Let me just go over that and see what's good there. So I tightened the clutch down, put a little more pressure on it. Mind you, I already put a lot of preload on the spring. Still feels like it's slipping. So I'm not gonna knock the clutch out. I'm just gonna, you know, I have to knock the whole basket and everything out to tighten preload up on there. Cool. So don't want to do that. I tighten up the little, you know, star nut, tighten that down, really crank down on that. Normally the clutch lever, you can compress it, depress it, whatever, squeeze it all the way till it touches the handlebars. And somewhere in that range, you'll be able to set it so it can idle and whatnot. So when you set the clutch to, you know, to idle, it would actually drag on the motor a little bit. Problem is where that was another hair farther, and it was as far as the clutch could go. I basically had all the preload I could on this between this and the star nut because it just was not gripping. So when I took the, now you already, guys, you already know, I'm not happy. Yeah, I'm not happy with how much grease is on this bike. Now I know Bear does what he can and he greases it up. Well, he doesn't clean the old grease off, which in turn basically just makes a paste of grit and grime and salt. You have to clean the old grease off before you just start re-grease. You can re-grease it a couple times in a row, but if you don't clean the old grease off and clean the chain up before you put new grease on at least once a month with the amount he greases, you're just basically making a sandpaper paste. And that's why it wore down. Like, look at the nubs on this thing. Look how thin they are.
They're tiny little guys. I'm still going to use it till it wears out because I don't have a bunch of those. But he needs to. So that's a whole nother story. So, okay, I'm excited. So he puts a lot of grease on this freaking thing. When I took the clutch apart, because you can see it is now in my hands and we are now in the room, so the motor is not on the bike and we are basically back to square one. We might be actually -1 if I'm being honest, because we're not even at the whole point of where we were with freshly putting the motor together. Now we're farther apart, so we're back. We're actually squared -2. Okay, so cool. Just where I wanted to be when I'm in frantic mode to try to get this bike going so I can get Tweaker back from him so I can have a bike to ride to work. Oh, that's completely right. I totally forgot. You guys don't even know what I'm talking about right now. So in the last video, you know, I said I'm taking my time and I'm not rushing. Everything's fine. No stressing. I've got Jokester. It's running great. I loaned out the mule to Benny because he got in that car accident so he can get around. And Bear, I'm working on his bike and he needed to borrow a bike. So I was like, take Tweaker. I can trust you'll take care of it. Here, take Tweaker. So everything's going great. Everything's good. I'm going to my regular job. That's why I had to loan the bike out, because I got a regular job, but I can't just take an entire day or two to fix his bike and get it back to him. Well, about a couple days after I started doing this video and working on his bike, I was riding Jokester on the way home from work, and coming down the hill over the bridge, I kept it pinned for whatever reason. I don't know. I was just having fun because I was going really fast, because Jokester really moves out. She hits 50 without even blinking an eye. And when I was coming down the bottom of the hill, I'm already at the top of the rev, and I just kept it pinned. And when I got to the bottom of the hill, it started jolting and jerking really bad, and then I slowed down, and when I gave it gas again, it sounded like a motor with a huge cam in it, and it was just really not running correctly. So I definitely damaged something, not exactly sure what I damaged. So now we gotta rip Jokester down because it pretty much blew up. Now it is still running, but it is not running well. It's running very poorly. So now I still need to get to work. I need to get Tweaker back from him because I'm not going to go ride the mule. I'm going to ride my other daily. But what is an issue is Jokester's down. I need to get Tweaker back, and I know at this moment Benny's having trouble with the mule. So now everything working good. Now I am in crunch mode, and basically now trying to climb Mount Crushmore with this time crunch I got going on, and I need a bike that can do it. So we need to get Bear's bike done, back to him, and I got to get Jokester fixed so I can get back on my normal bike. Because let's face it, I like riding Jokester, and I don't want to take and ride Tweaker all the time again. Even though I do love the bike, it's not what I want to be riding. I don't want to do any more damage, so I really got to get Tweaker back so I could stop riding Jokester, so I could break it down and fix it. I bought all the parts that I could possibly need because, remember, I don't know what's really wrong with it. Problem here is we still need to fix Bear's bike, and it's not running right at all. So like I said in the very first video, because this is probably going to be a 3-part video series, well, in the first video I said I'm taking my time and I'm not rushing. Well, now we're trying to climb Mount Crushmore to get this time crunch taken care of, and I'm way behind. So now I am trying to rush to get everything done in a timely manner for all of us, because it's all falling on my shoulders. And I don't mind having the pressure of helping everyone out, but it is really stressful and taking a lot of time out for me wanting to do my fun project. So I said in the very first video that we are starting in like November 10th and we're going to end in December 8th with all the footage. This motor rebuild, which you'll find out pretty soon, actually took 3 motors to rebuild it. Let me explain in another video though why it took so much and so much time. And as it unfolds, hopefully it will make sense to you, but a lot of it is due just because I was rushing and not taking my time towards the end, and basically kind of overthinking things while I underthought things, if that makes any sense. It doesn't, but bear with me here. So this build took a month just to rebuild a motor when all I had to do was helicoil a stud for the exhaust. Well, we all know how that goes. I chased that rabbit right down that exhaust bolt hole and all the way into the motor, and that's why we ended up in this situation with me rebuilding the motor completely and running into all these problems. So let's get back into trying to figure out why this thing is fighting me so much so we can get to fixing Jokester that I decided to over rev and blow up so I can get over to Benny and help him with the mule that he decided to destroy. But all this is going to happen, in some of it's in this video and the rest of it will hopefully be in part 3. So stick with me for the rest of this mini build series that was supposed to just be a helicoil in an exhaust bolt. I really gotta stop chasing these rabbits down these holes. You would think I'm part beagle with the way I find a scent, so to speak, and just chase that rabbit right down the hole. What an idiot. And I still have to get my bikes fixed. I'm so behind. Oh my gosh, I'm losing my... I'm sorry. I digress. So, anyway, rewind. Okay, good. So we're back at that. So I took it all apart. It was caked in grease. Here are the clutch pads. Okay. Now his old motor, is really mild. It didn't make a lot of compression and it didn't make a lot of torque and power. This motor is definitely making way more compression and making way more power. Cool. Wonderful. That's awesome. Problem with that is that you can't have greasy pucks. Look, it's so greasy when I just went like this and threw it, it stuck to my finger and flung at me instead of just dropping. That's how greasy everything is. So I cleaned all the grease off of this, took my file, and I filed this down. So just to give it some texture so the pucks have something to grab onto. Unfortunately, I am running low on these, but these are the stock ones that have the rope in it and some other, I don't know, something. So they're definitely not good. These are absolute trash because it's just an oily, greasy mess at this point. So I think I have another set of pucks somewhere. I gotta find them and locate them, which is awesome because I'm only really super on a time crunch. So I definitely want to be searching through all my stuff to find these things. So that's one thing that's just wonderful. Second, after I get the clutch back together with some fresh to death new pads, the motor made some kind of weird noise. A noise that was unbecoming of a motor that you just put together. It was not necessarily like a piston hitting a head, but it definitely sounded like a tick, but it was so intermittent. And at that point, I had so much pressure on the clutch, it didn't do it when I first fired it up. It only did it once I started putting more and more pressure on the clutch. So maybe it was to do with the clutch. It was so windy last night that I couldn't hear, because even when I was going slow and it would make that noise because it's intermittent making the noise, there was so much wind going by I couldn't hear nothing. It was just, and you hear a faint kink, 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 kink in the background. So I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Probably doing the same thing when I get this on and do it tonight, but at least if I know the clutch is good and it still makes it, then it's not the clutch anymore. I do know that the one dowel, I had it too far in and it was scuffing up the case a wee bit. Not a big deal, just scratched it, don't really care. Doesn't do anything except cosmetics. So let's get the clutch back together. Let's get the proper, well, I'm gonna leave the amount of preload that's on it. It's got 2.5 threads showing, and I definitely won't need to tighten. I had almost as much as you see sticking out, that's how much was coming out of the end of this. That's how tight I had this. Normally you should just have the, not for you, different for everybody. Most of my builds, the threads, these threads are just starting to peek out of this star nut. I had that much threads coming out the end. Like when I took this out, you could barely see a gap between the springs. That's how much preload I had on it. And it was still slipping because of all the greasiness. So I filed this down, I cleaned this, we're gonna find pucks, put it back together, reassemble, and then I'm gonna take a gander inside the motor real quick to make sure there's not something stupid going on. I have it off the bike, it's easy to access. Even if I have to take the cylinder off and re-moto seal it, it is what it is. I just wanna make sure there's nothing crazy going on because I had to move the centering pin over. I just wanna make sure that's not doing something stupid now and it's just gonna snap it all up in it. Because if that's the case, we can nip it right here and, right, we can nip it right here, yeah. Yeah, basically. I'll put another piston in for all I care. I'll put a whole nother cylinder and piston on just to, I need to get this done. So I gotta stop talking to you guys. You need to start listening to me and just know what I'm gonna say so I don't have to do all this nonsense back and forth. I mean, you're really taking time out of my day. I found the clay pucks. So the way I do it, I just put it in there, a couple love taps, tap the top where it's sticking out, and then I tap the bottom to make sure to seat it. And what that does a lot of times is, if you look real close, see these little pieces here? All it does is it basically just jams it in there, but it cuts to the shape so it fits in easily. This way you can get it to fit very easily. Okay, so you can see, there we go. The metal of the basket cuts this clay. If you hold it by the ring, because this moves up and down, slight, but it does, it moves up and down. It runs on the bearing that's in here, but there's play in it. So what I do is I brace it in between so it's just on the ring gear, so it only catches right here on the vise, and then I beat it, all of them down. What I wanted to do is I wanted to cut off as much of this junk as possible so that once I get the clutch together, it has enough room on those pads so that they move freely. When every time I release the clutch or depress the clutch, it either puts on the amount of pressure or takes off the amount of pressure I want it to. Big difference. Yeah, big difference. Very happy about that. This was honestly a big problem. And it's my own fault. I should have looked at it before I put it all together. So it's definitely my own fault that I did not. But between roughed up file surface, which it's not really rough, it's not gonna like it's gonna chew these up. It's just not crazy smooth and incredibly greasy like it was. So between that, the new pads, all this stuff, this clutch is definitely gonna grip. Okay, we are back to square -1 now. We were at -2, we're at -1. Process. We're progressing. All right, I just wanted to show you real quick so you know what's going on here. So I've spun this over. There's no snagging anywhere. I was worried maybe the ring is snagging. That was the noise I hear. Nothing. There's nothing going on. Everything looks great in there. The only thing that I just did is I switched out this stud. It was slightly stripped up here, and when I took out the head off, the stud came out instead of the nut off. So it was just, there was a couple threads that were mucked up on the old one, so I put a new one in, a little bit of tiny little bit of thread locker, and that seems to, that should work. So I used the red on that because I don't want them to come out. Okay, next, since everything looks good in the head, and where I was worried about the ring maybe being an issue, it doesn't seem like there's any issues there, so I'm going to put that back on. Also, there was no issues on the head. There's no nicks, nothing. Everything looks good. Now, the spark plug. It wasn't a new plug when I put it in, but I did clean it before I put it back in. So if you look at the color, honestly, I'm not sure if it's lean. I don't think it is. Honestly, I think it looks perfect. It looks chocolate in color. It does have a little bit of black here, but for the most part, it doesn't look white. It looks chocolate. And chocolate is like perfect running. Now, it wasn't running great when I had it running because it kept wanting to stall out, but it's a brand new motor. It needs to get broken in. I've had that where it wants to kind of stall out on me, and I got to kind of keep the throttle going just to get it to do something till it gets a little bit of, runtime on it. Also, it kept wanting to stall because the clutch was just constantly dragging. Unless I kept it revved up, as soon as I let it off, I just wanted to stall because I had so much preload. I didn't realize that was what was going on with the clutch at the time. So hopefully this should be good. The clutch is all together and missing. I didn't put it in yet, but I showed you, I think. So that's about to go in a couple seconds. I'm about to put the head back on, tighten that back down, put the clutch back in, and it is 6:43. We're gonna run outside. Sorry, you guys. We're gonna run outside and throw this on the bike again and see how it goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm just gonna bring you in now. So I have the motor all back together, and I was about to go out and put it on the bike. But when I flipped the motor over, because mind you, I had it laying one way the entire time. Now, I moto seal the bottom 99% of the times. Once I moto seal it, it doesn't come off unless you tap it with a hammer, because it just doesn't come off. It seals it really well. So when I take the head off, I usually don't even think about having to take the jug off, the cylinder off, to re-moto seal it, clean up, and redo it, because it's usually still really tight from when I did it the first time, and I just don't have to worry about doing it again. But when I flipped the motor over from me having it on its side, this side, almost the entire time I was working on it just now, down in here, I saw black, oily, runny, gooey mix. And I'm like, man, that looks like used up two-stroke mix. You know, it gets black because it gets used, but the oil sits in there and lubricates everything. I turned the motor back over, and I noticed when I turned it over, there was a little bit on this side. After I tightened the head down. So what happened is seal was broken and it started leaking out. I tightened it down without looking at it because usually you can't even move these. Now look, I just took the head off. It's wiggling plenty free from the case. So good thing I saw that oil. I'm gonna take this, I took the head off already. I wanted to see if this was moving without the head, without the nuts on. Without the nuts on, after I moto seal it, 90% of the time it won't move. 99% of the time, I don't know. Most of the time it will not move. It would jiggle this whole thing until I really yank on it and make it move. But this one actually is moving, which is making me wonder if I didn't have a good seal on it. Did I not put enough moto seal in it? Did I put too much? Did something go wrong when I moto sealed it? Because I've never had that happen unless it was a faulty, you know, sealing job, so to speak. So, I mean, yeah, it sucks that that happened, but at the same time, it's kind of good. I mean, it's definitely good that I found it because, you know, who wants to be chasing a leak like that? Because that would definitely been a leak when I go to put it back on, even if it wasn't right away. After it heats up and the metal expands a couple times and it goes through a heat cycle or two, boom, all of a sudden I'm chasing some mystery leak, me thinking, well, I moto sealed everything and it's good, and it just shows slow down, double check everything. So if I didn't see that oil, that would have been a real problem. I'd have been outside probably cussing up a storm, mad as all get out because what happened? It should be sealed. Well, it's not. Honestly, everything else on here looks perfect. Everything else, like all the work I did.
All right, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. So, what do we got going on today? Well, we got a continuation of yesterday. Basically, it's gonna be the same video. Don't even say welcome to the channel. So what we're doing is we're back on Bear's bike. Why are we back on it? Because it never, ever stops. Basically, what happened yesterday in the dark, that's why you don't know, was after putting a 70 jet, a stock jet in it, too lean when I pulled the plug. The plug was white. Then I put a 75 jet in it, still white, running too lean, I felt. Put an 85 jet in it, still says it was lean, still had knock, but running absolutely horrible. No way that could be right. So, bing, I'm thinking something's not right. I'm like, you know what? I've had it before with him where he's had a bad gas mix and it makes the bike run messed up. Plus the gas that was in it was the gas that was in it when he blew his motor up. So who knows what he's doing. I know when I talked to him last, he told me he was getting, you know, if a gallon of gas costs $3.50, he'll say, give me $5. So you put 40 to 1 in that, you're making 55 to 1, 60 to 1, you know, like you're not getting an accurate count of 40 to 1. So I already know that he was messing up in that aspect. Oh, and if the background looks different, it's because it is. We are kind of a throwback to where I used to be last summer when I worked under the overpass next to the hotel I was staying at. But we are in an old bank overhang checker thingy bobby. Basically, the house is over there. Hello, Benny.
Hello.
Don't smoke on the channel. It's just kids watch. It's about, you know, I like to set a good example, you know. I'm parent friendly. Say hello, Benny.
Hello.
So we're right across from the house over there, and we had to come over here because it is pouring rain. I got out of work kind of early, had a sandwich, and then we decided to come over here and do this because I need to get this done. So anyway, back to what I was telling you. Last time I took it out with the 85, it ran absolutely horrible. It just kept getting progressively worse and worse and worse. And when I was last using it, it was really rich, so I smelt a lot of fuel, and the fuel did not smell 100% right. That's what got me into the whole thing we're talking about, how he had a bad mix. I drained the tank, put my fuel in, which I know is good, and it didn't really run better performance-wise because it was still really fat with the 85 jet in it, but it was acting like a fat motor would act or should act, and I didn't hear the occasional knock or ping from the motor because it was making me think the piston was hitting the head on occasion, but it wasn't constant. It was intermittent here and there, and only when I got on the throttle more, which made me think it was knock. If you don't know what that is, just Google it, knock in a two-stroke, any motor really. So that's what made me change the fuel, thinking it might be pinging bad fuel, bad octane, something in the fuel, who knows. He's not good at this, and you know, I'm not faulting him for it, but I need this thing done, and I need to take everything out of the equation and make sure it's 100%, because this should run perfect. So we're gonna go back to square one as if I just put the bike on with a 70 jet and my fuel, and we're gonna see how it runs. Also, very excited about this. So I've been looking for one of these for a long time. Let me set it up. Thanks for setting it up, Benny.
You're welcome.
Oh boy. So this is what I got. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this before, but look at that. This is a bike stand for training inside. So I'm not exactly sure how it works. I believe there's oil or water, something is inside of here. And as this spins, if it wasn't so loud out with all the cars and me yapping, you'd be able to hear the liquid in here turning. So as you spin this faster and faster, it builds pressure up. What this is gonna do is keep me from riding around in the miserable weather and the rain, because I don't wanna do that. I can hook the bike up on here, start it up, and actually ride it in place. I've been wanting to get one of these and try it for a long time. I was moving a customer, they had this in the garbage. Literally the day I told someone else, keep an eye out for me, found it in the garbage that day. Buddy. So super excited about that. Been dying to try it. I'd love to turn it into a dyno somehow. Probably never gonna, but I'd like to. Either way, now we don't have to get into the rain, get all wet, and like when I'm doing like reed valves, or I'm doing like, you know, much bigger tuning jobs, I don't have to get and ride around and try to tune on the fly. I can literally sit still, run the engine right there, standing next to it, and be not shaking as I'm trying to, you know, turn a screwdriver, because everything's vibrating and moving and I'm balancing. This is just gonna make everything way better. And I really wanted to try it. So let's put the 70 jet in here, and I guess we'll start you up and see what we're gonna do. Oh, so you know, Benny's over here. This bike was given to him recently. He didn't steal it. So basically, he got into an accident not too long ago. He's been riding around the mule. He broke the mule, like just destroyed it.
No, it's not.
Right.
Ring.
What'd you say?
It's a ring.
It's a ring. Yeah,
It's a ring.
he's acting like he actually knows what he has no idea what he's talking about. It still has good compression. It's perfect. It's cold. It never got tuned when I built it, but no matter what, it's still his fault and he broke it. So the moral here is Benny broke it. So Benny's gonna strip this down because we want those forks. I'm gonna give him a frame that will fit a bike. He has another nice bike with 29-inch wheels, but like this, it's similar, a little bit bigger, but it doesn't fit, the triangle doesn't fit a motor. We're gonna gut this one in pieces. He wants the front rotor brakes, so we can put that on another bike and we'll just get the whole head and everything figured out. But this got really good components, so we'll strip this and put it on his bike that we're gonna build for him soon. And that should be it. So he's got a lot of stripping to do, no singles involved. I've got a lot of just misery ahead of me. So let's get started.